Welcome to Somewhat Scholarly. My name is Alan Hibbard, and today I am reacting to a video, not a podcast, a video featuring Michael Saylor on Cointelegraph. The title is Why You Shouldn't Sell Your Bitcoin for the Next 100 Years. 100 years. So I will link to this video in the description. Here's a little teaser of Michael Saylor.
It's a gift. Once in 1,000 years, do you actually see the invention of a fundamentally new thing? This is our once in 1,000 year opportunity. You get to buy into it early.
So if you don't know, Michael Saylor is the CEO of MicroStrategy, and he has become famous lately for buying a ton of Bitcoin, I think $500 million of Bitcoin, and he keeps adding to it on behalf of MicroStrategy, a publicly traded company. And he's really led the way for other publicly traded companies to follow suit, including Square and Tesla. So people say, the narrative is that Michael Saylor was influential on Elon Musk. So I don't know how true that is or not, but that's certainly the story going around, that Michael Saylor told Elon Musk to buy Bitcoin for Tesla. So I don't really know how much of that is true or not, but Tesla did also buy Bitcoin. So very exciting, and Michael Saylor is conducting a lot of interviews everywhere talking about Bitcoin, and so we got another interview today. Let's see what he says.
What's up, everybody? Austin Davis here, interviewing the famed Michael Saylor. We're going to be chatting about Bitcoin and about success and failure and glory and all the above. How you doing, Michael?
I'm well, thank you.
Amazing. So there's a lot going on around Bitcoin around the world. You're obviously a huge advocate of it these days, and you believe in it, which is amazing to have someone in your position who actually has done the research and decided it was a good investment and a good secure way to secure the future. So that leads me to the kind of tying engineering to this. So I love it when you kind of bring the thermodynamic principles and the laws of thermodynamics into explanations of Bitcoin and why you think it's a very sound money because of that. So Can you touch on that a little bit, on thermodynamics and Bitcoin?
When I think about Bitcoin, I think, well, first of all, it's the first successfully engineered monetary network in the history of the world. One day they'll probably have a class, or they'll have a degree in monetary engineering at universities, next to chemical engineering or electrical engineering. It makes sense. What is money? Well, I think most people don't ask the question. I think money is monetary energy. I think it's the apex energy. And as soon as you understand money to be energy, then it stands to reason that a monetary system that applies the principle of conservation of energy is a pretty good idea. If I create a bathtub with the sink open, it doesn't work. If I have a swimming pool with a leak in it, it doesn't work. In fact, nothing in the engineering world, aqueducts don't work, right? Bridges with a leak in them don't work. So every engineer knows you have to apply the laws of thermodynamics. You need to apply conservation of energy, right? So once you understand money is monetary energy, and you understand Bitcoin is a monetary energy network, then you start to appreciate the fact that it either does or does not respect the laws of thermodynamics if you don't have conservation of energy. And so I respect Bitcoin because A, it's a monetary system, B, it's engineered in a conservative fashion, and the classic definition of conservative would be derived from conservation of energy.
Okay, so I agree with what Michael is saying here about conservation of energy and how it pertains to a monetary system. But if this whole idea of energy and money, if it sounds too abstract, let me break it down for you in what I think is a much more simple way. I would start by saying that everything is energy. Everything is energy. Let me explain. And then if you disagree, you'd let me know. Okay? Because I think if you think through this idea that everything is energy, everything in the universe is energy, and you believe that, then you naturally believe that money is energy too. So let me work my way up to that. Everything is energy. What do I mean? Okay. For example, all matter is energy. That's what Einstein showed with E equals mc squared. All energy is matter. All matter is energy. So anything you can touch, like a book or a microphone, anything, a curtain, right? Anything you can touch, all matter is energy. And they're related through the equation E equals mc squared. So it's all energy. But even things you can't touch are energy. So anything you see, right? Any light is energy. Anything you hear, all sound, it's just vibrations. It's energy. Anything you taste or smell, right? They're chemicals that are sending, that are interacting with your sensory receptors and then send signals through neurotransmitters through your body that are all chemical reactions that are all energy. I mean, it's all energy. And of course, touch, right? Anything you touch is energy, right? It's a sensation that, tickles a little receptor. And of course, your nervous system is all neurotransmitters passing energy through your body. So it's all energy. Even your other senses. By the way, you have more than 5 senses. I don't know why we tell children that you have 5 senses. You have way more than 5 senses. So besides the 5 I just named, you also have a sense of balance, which comes from your inner ear. So like when you fall over, or how you stay upright, you have a sense of balance with your interstitial fluid. Okay, that's all energy. You have a sense of direction, which comes from probably your pineal gland right here and how it interacts with the Earth's magnetic field, right? Like when you're lost somewhere and you're like, I think we should go left, or I think we gotta whatever. Like your sense of direction, that's a sense, first of all, and it comes from magnetism, I'm pretty sure. It's been a while since I looked into that, but I think so. Anyways, you have a sense of fairness, right? You have a sense of right and wrong. You have a sense of purpose. These are like actual real senses, and they all come from different energetic flows. So not just matter is energy, but also non-matter is energy, right? All these sensory receptors. All we're doing, by the way, is just perceiving the energy around us, right? We're just energy perception machines. That's people, right? That's all we do, right? And then we make energy, like my vocal cords are vibrating. It's just a vibration, right? Energy, frequency. And so like food, like why do we eat food? It's calories. What is a calorie? It is literally a measure of energy. A calorie is the amount of energy needed to raise 1 liter of water by 1 degree Celsius, right? To just make it hotter. What is heat? Heat is energy. It's just energy bouncing around. What is cold? Well, cold isn't really a thing. It's just a lack of heat, right? The only thing there is heat, which is energy. And the question is, how much do you have? And if you have relatively less heat, relatively less energy, we say that's cold relative to something else. So everything is energy. Everything is energy. Even Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, right? So if you want to understand the secrets of anything, how do you be happy? How do you be wealthy? How do you be this? How do you be that? Energy, frequency, vibration. You gotta think this way. Everything is energy. So if you believe me on that point, I know it took a while to explain it, but if you believe me that everything is energy, oh, by the way, okay, one other thing, even abstract nouns like freedom, democracy, hope, love, friendship, all these things, yeah, they're just words and we could just, put them in their own bucket, but really what they are is their energetic states, their vibrational frequencies. And so like, if you really get along with someone, me and that guy, we're on the same wavelength, right? You say wavelength. You're on the same wavelength. Or, I like that guy, good vibes, vibrations, right? It's all energy. Oh man, everything is energy. So anyways, I think you get the idea. So money falls into that same category. Money is also energy. It's economic energy. And when you go to work, why do we call it work? Why do we call it work? It's the same thing in physics. Work is a force multiplied by a distance. And when you go to work, you are exerting a force in a particular direction to get something done. And if you do a lot of work, right, that probably required a lot of energy, and in an economic sense, you're compensated for your work, right? So again, looking at Newton's laws of thermodynamics, right? Force in an equal and opposite direction, conservation of energy. So if you do a bunch of work exerting a lot of energy, the fair way of the universe resolving itself is for you to be compensated with an equal amount of energy. So the energy you put out is the energy you get back. It is important, I think this is what Michael Saylor is saying, it is important that you design a monetary system in such a way that that is true, that holds true now and in the future. Because you don't just want to convert energy in the blink of an eye, you want to convert energy across long periods of time. And the existing monetary system that we've used, fiat monetary system, for the last 50 years or so, since 1971, doesn't do that. It leaks. It's broken. It's poorly engineered. And Bitcoin is much better in terms of conserving energy.
In your mind, what happens as we approach 2141 when the last Bitcoins are being mined? What does the world look like, regarding Bitcoin and the use of it at that point?
Well, I think scarcity just means integrity. It means mathematical purity, or it means conservation of energy. And if you have integrity in any engineered body or reactor, that just means that you're not going to be leaking pressure or leaking fluids. It's a closed system thermodynamically, or an adiabatic system. And of course, what you learn in engineering is you can't solve for a non-adiabatic system. There's no solution because it's uncertain as to how much fluid or how much mass will enter or leave the system.
Okay, so what Michael Saylor is saying here is that Bitcoin is an adiabatic system, meaning it doesn't transfer any heat or mass from the system itself to its surroundings. In other words, it conserves energy. So any energy or any work that is put into the system only comes out as work. It doesn't come out as heat or mass or anything lost as friction. It only comes out purposefully as work. This is important because he's arguing that Bitcoin is different from our existing monetary system because our existing monetary system leaks energy. It's inefficient. It loses energy due to friction. So, for example, if you work and you make $100 and you save that $100, well, it's still $100, right? For however long it's in your pocket or your bank account. However, the energy that it required you to originally get that $100 is not the same energy that you will get back when you ultimately spend the $100. So in other words, the energy you put into the system is not conserved. It leaks, it drains. And the name we have for that is inflation, and what that looks like is prices going up in the economy. So things get more expensive because of how our monetary system is designed. So when it comes time for you to pull the energy out of your own money, there's not as much there as when you originally put your energy in. That is terrible. You do not want to use a money that is designed that way. But Bitcoin, in contrast, is designed so that whatever energy you put into that money will be there in the future when you want to take it out. And it comes out as work, right? You can basically entice someone else to do work for you in the economy. That's what an economy is. Now, do I agree with Michael here? In theory, yes, I do. I agree that Bitcoin is designed that way. However, there is a possibility that there are cracks in the system that we just don't know about. There is a possibility, for example, that there's a bug in the software that causes a proverbial leak, that causes friction. That's possible. We don't know for sure that there isn't a bug. All we can do is look for one and not find it. Look for one and not find it. Look for one and not find it. That's all we can do. We can't say for certain that there isn't a bug. So Bitcoin could fail in its existing implementation. And what failing would look like is a drain of energy. And the price of Bitcoin would crash, and that would essentially mean that all the energy that went into the system, all the work that was done in the Bitcoin system, essentially evaporated or leaked or drained or somehow spilled out or was lost as friction. And all your money goes bye-bye. So that is a possibility. However, the design, the intention was to be this adiabatic system that will not lose any energy due to friction. And so far it's looking pretty good, right? There have been bugs found in the software previously, and we've fixed them, we think. Could there be another bug? Yeah, there could be. So it remains to be seen whether or not Bitcoin is an adiabatic system, whether or not it will conserve energy the way Michael and I and basically everyone hopes that it will. Like, it remains to be seen, right? It conserves energy until it doesn't.
Scarcity really, to my mind, just means we've decided to create a conservative adiabatic system such that we can solve an economic problem. Once we've done that, what do I think will happen? I think that the system, the Bitcoin monetary network will gracefully evolve into a monetary network that's funded by transaction fees, and the transaction fees will finance the miners to provide transaction processing power and security, and it'll be all market driven. And as the network gets more broadly distributed, the demand for scarce bandwidth on the network will increase, and the transaction fees will increase, and the transaction size and monetary value will increase. We'll end up moving large blocks of money, $1 million, $10 million, $100 million, whatever the fiat currency is. It'll be large blocks with high transaction fees, and then all the small blocks will move off chain in essence, Bitcoin banks like PayPal or Square or Binance or Coinbase, which are in essence Bitcoin banks that are moving hundreds of millions of small transactions off chain, or maybe in Lightning, if you will. And and it'll be great.
Yeah, so I basically agree with Michael's vision of the future of Bitcoin. Just one point to clarify: when he says blocks, big blocks and little blocks, I think he's talking about like the dollar size of the Bitcoins that are moving around. I think he's talking about like a lot of dollars would move around on chain, and then small amounts of dollars would move off chain. I think that's what he's talking about. Not to be confused with the block size debate that has happened between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV. And block size there refers to how many megabytes a block can hold, whether it's 1 megabyte or 2 megabytes or 8 megabytes or unlimited. So I don't think Michael Saylor is talking about like the bits and bytes that can actually fit into a block on the blockchain. I think he's talking about the dollar value of the transactions. And I agree with him. I think in the long term, the only transactions that will happen on chain for the most part will be large value transactions. And part of the reason for that is that transaction fees will necessarily go up in order to incentivize miners. Because as the block reward goes down over time, right, which is the halving event, right, the block reward gets cut in half every 4 years. So as the block reward goes down over time, which we know will happen with mathematical certainty, the fees will probably, almost certainly, have to come up based on the laws of supply and demand in order to incentivize miners to process transactions. So also for pragmatic purposes, if you're going to want to spend your Bitcoin on a cup of coffee, so to speak, or make transactions at the speed of life, you're not going to make transactions on chain, and people are not currently making those transactions on chain. So it's easy to predict that the future will basically look the same as it does now in that regard. Basically, we'll use either third-party companies or third-party services or something to make transactions faster, cheaper, more scalable, and so forth. And essentially, they will either be Bitcoin banks or Bitcoin other service providers. We might have other names for them in the future, but that's essentially the role that they're going to play. So I agree with Michael on all of that.
So do you think that, let's say invoices will be thought of in Bitcoin in the future instead of, right now it's, I guess, globally accepted that the US dollar is a good comparative currency when you're invoicing. Do you think that we'll start to switch because it's so universal, if you will?
What I think is there's going to be let's say today there's $500 trillion worth of monetary energy, money in the system. And it's divided between currencies like the euro and the dollar. It's divided in tangible hard assets, maybe real estate, trophy assets, art, gold, silver, Bitcoin. And then there's a portion of it that's sitting in bonds and stocks. And Bitcoin is going to grow from that $600 billion asset to become a $10 trillion asset like gold, then it will subsume gold and it'll become a 20, 30, 40, 50, $100 trillion asset. And that'll be the core of the monetary planet, if you will.
Right.
Now, we're still going to have Picasso, and people will have a value for their Picasso paintings. You're still going to have your diamonds you're wearing and your gold rings, and you're going to have your beach house because you're going to want your beach house. If you're going to own stocks, you're going to own them because you love the companies, because you wanted to make an investment in the company, because you love the company. You think it's going to go up faster than the rate of monetary expansion. I think that the currencies will be mandated by the governments. As long as there's a United States government, there'll be a dollar, and the dollar will be legal tender. And people will buy things and sell things transactionally in dollars. And the reason why is because the IRS gives the dollar currency tax treatment.
I definitely agree with what Michael is saying in terms of what the future of Bitcoin and currencies will look like. Basically that, as long as we have people, we're going to have governments, and as long as we have governments, we're going to have currencies, because they're basically in the government's best interest. So as long as that's true, as long as we do have currencies like a U.S. dollar, the IRS or whatever regulatory bodies exist in a particular country will basically require taxes to be paid in that currency. And all of your gains and losses on property, such as Bitcoin, have to be measured in that currency. So, yes, for the reasons that Michael says, I agree that probably most prices of things in local economies will be denoted in local currency. So you go to the United States, prices will be denoted in US dollars. You go to Canada, prices will be denoted in Canadian dollars, and so forth around the world. So there's one other thing that I would say about why that is likely to happen. And that's Gresham's law. So Gresham's law. So basically, if you don't know Gresham's law, I encourage you to look it up. Simply stated, it's basically that the presence of bad money in an economy drives out good money from the economy. So in other words, if an economy has two different candidates for money going around, one of which could be US dollars, another of which could be gold or Bitcoin or anything, so we're probably going to have at least two all the time. For example, gold and the US dollar, right? They're pretty much always going to be there. Even if the dollar takes on a different form or a different shape or a different definition, it'll be there. Okay, so as long as there's at least two types of money, two candidates for money in a system, Gresham's law, note that it's a law, predicts that the good money will be HODLed, essentially, and the bad money will circulate as currency. So this is actually how I would define a currency, is the thing that circulates. So it's basically the least good money of the available options. And typically that's the one that the government creates and forces you to use, right? If the government weren't forcing you to use it, nobody would use it. So because of Gresham's law, over time, we see the best candidates for money, which historically have been gold, and I guess silver as well, and now Bitcoin. We see the best candidates for money just simply go into people's pockets or under their mattresses and stay there forever, and people don't spend them. And the reason for that is because on the micro level, when somebody is making an individual transaction, like I, pay somebody for a cup of coffee, if they're willing to accept from me multiple different types of money, right? So not the scenario we just talked about where everyone's choosing to accept dollars in the United States. Okay, that scenario sort of answers its own question. People are going to use dollars. What if merchants accept dollars or Bitcoin, dollars or gold or Bitcoin or 100 different things? What if there's an option? Which one am I going to spend? Generally, I'm going to spend the thing that I think is least valuable. I'm going to give away the thing that is least valuable to me, and I'm going to keep the things that are most valuable in my possession. And that's the decision that I make every time I make a transaction. So if a merchant will accept $3 worth of dollars or $3 worth of Bitcoin, I perceive the Bitcoin as being more valuable. So I'm going to keep the Bitcoin and I'm going to spend the dollars. And probably everyone else is going to be making a very similar decision. And as a result, no one's going to spend Bitcoin. They're just going to save it. They're going to HODL it, right? And that's really the use case of money. It's saving. right? Saving for the long term. And the use case of currency is spending, right? It's the thing you spend, and you spend it because it's not that valuable. You actually don't want currency very long. You don't want to hold it for a very long time. You want to get rid of it. And the reason that it even is currency is because you're getting rid of it, because you're making a transaction with it. And the reason you're getting rid of it is because you'd rather have whatever the person is giving you, right? I don't want $3 in my pocket. I'd rather have a hot cup of coffee in my hand, or whatever it is that I'm buying, right? I don't want $100,000. I'd rather have a house or whatever. So the only reason I'm spending my hard-earned energy is because I want the thing that someone's willing to give me. Doesn't matter if it's a cup of coffee or a house or new white T-shirts or or what it is. Doesn't matter. So anyways, I think I agree with what Michael Saylor is saying here, that there's always going to be currencies. It's very unlikely that we're going to denominate things in Bitcoin, certainly not on a mass scale. There will be certain individual merchants or retailers and so forth that do denote things in Bitcoin for sure. But it's very unlikely that entire societies do it, like an entire country, and probably not the entire world. And I agree with him for the reasons that he said, and I agree with his ultimate vision for the additional reason that I gave, which is the force of Gresham's law.
Central bank or the U.S. or the whatever, their tax authority will determine the currency based upon whatever they designate as currency. If the IRS had designated Bitcoin as currency, there would be no capital gain to move that back and forth. When the IRS designated as property, it implies it's digital gold. You should treat it like gold. You should buy it and hold it forever. And then my advice to you would be to borrow against it tax-free. Never pay capital gains. Never take an operating income. If you must sell it, I don't think you should, because it's the highest quality property in the world. And in the history of the world, we never invented a technically more thermodynamically sound, pure monetary property than this, right? This should be the container for the money you're going to hold for your grandchildren. This is it. Better than gold, better than a stock, better than real estate, better than a Picasso, even if you love a Picasso.
Okay, this is a really interesting idea that Michael has here, which is basically hold your Bitcoin forever, and then if you need US dollars, don't sell the Bitcoin, just borrow against the Bitcoin. So this is something I've heard him say on other podcasts, and I haven't spent enough time thinking about it to see if it makes sense or how much sense it makes or the pros and cons and so forth. But he does kind of highlight some of the benefits here, which is that you never pay capital gains tax because you never sell, and you don't pay any income tax because you're not earning anything. So that's definitely appealing on an upside, but the downside, I think, is that the value of the Bitcoin basically has to go up over time, or else the strategy doesn't work. Then you're in the hole big time. Then you're in debt, and you've lost the value of your asset. So I would have to do some number crunching before I recommended this strategy or implemented it myself. But it's definitely interesting to consider. So maybe I'll make a separate video on that in the future.